new countdown, and we are going to wing it.
That sounds very
Welcome to
special.
Nerds. Sorry. Welcome to Nerds Out of Water, the only podcast where tech gurus and good vibes collide. I'm Michael, and I'm joined by my partner in tech, David. We've been mixing brains and brawn in the tech world for decades. That's how old we are. I'm Michael. I'm the CTO at TeamScale. Picture a tech whisperer for businesses that are like, help, we're growing too fast. I just imagine them sitting going, help, you're growing too fast. Help me, help me. We swoop in with the coolest tech solutions and advice, turning chaos into calm.
And I'm David, steering the ship up one bright cloud. You can think of us as tech wizards trying to forecast the future of autonomous vehicles, AI, and all the jazz that sits around that. We're basically setting the stage for Industry 4.0, and I think between us, it's going to be an epic journey. Here's the deal. Michael and I throw our views into a blender. We whack it onto high and puree, and we look at things from fresh perspectives. You may not always agree on our choices. We don't always agree on our own perspectives. But I promise you, at the end of the day, you will have a brain buzzing set of ideas that you'll go away and think about. What are our thoughts today?
Well, it's been, I looked earlier. Last time we recorded a podcast was actually May 2022. So it's been a little while. And in that time, a lot has changed. Really a lot. We've seen so much change in the tech space, and during that time, obviously the pandemic has closed down. We've seen people going back to the office. We've seen travel happening again. We've seen all sorts of good things happening. So not all of it's bad. One of the biggest things we've seen is the democratization and the consumerization of AI. When we last recorded this podcast, we spent a lot of time talking about AI as if it was the realm of tech enthusiasts and nerds like us. Now it seems like everybody just can turn on ChatGPT or whatever they're using and get into the weeds, so to speak. It's having a huge impact on society. It's having a massive impact on education because students can use AI to do their assignments. And while it does offer opportunities for learning, it does also raise concerns about academic integrity. There's a whole lot of stuff going on in the creative space, both good and bad. It's able to generate music, art, literature, and obviously there's a lot of legal implications in that it's stealing the art, music, and literature from the people who created it in order to create new stuff. It's definitely blurring the lines between human and machine-generated content. And then, of course, the big one is ChatGPT and OpenAI, where it's pretty much become the go-to tool for everyone to get instant information. And in some cases, it's even rivaling Google and any other search engines. What do you think of the implications of this, David?
Well, I think one of the last conversations we had was around deepfakes and how deepfakes were becoming maybe a problem in the future. And I think we spoke about banks losing money because people had approached them to using deepfakes. And now we look at it. We've got we've got Llama. Llama coming out is going to really open up the capability for anyone to be able to create AI. So we've had Llama 1, Llama 2, and now Llama 3 is going to be dropped maybe this year. That is going to be, according to Mark Zuckerberg, to be able to, any person is to be able to create an AI. So is that dangerous? How's it being controlled? What does it mean for everybody else? Because the implications on you and I really comes down to what do we start believing?
Mm,
Who is controlling the information? Is the information correct? We look at some defense maps, and I think there was a whole article released recently around defense maps where they couldn't believe whether a boat, I think this was Ukraine Russian conflict, and a boat had left port, had been blown up, but then had reappeared back in port.
mm,
And it's because the the boat had actually never left port. It was all a deep fake on a massive scale that had come out. So
mm,
from defense through to robotics in the homes, through to industry 4.0 in our factories, we've got to really start thinking about how we control it. And there are so many ways this can be misaligned and misrepresented, but also there is ways that we can use this for the better. And you mentioned
mm.
education.
Tool,
Education is
a-
obviously one of those.
any
Sorry,
t- any tools are going to can be used for good or evil, evil. But
evil.
the I think the challenge we've got is to try and figure out how to continue using it for good, and try to not maybe restrict is the wrong word, but try to discourage the use of it in bad ways. One of the things I went to a conference late last year, and in in the AI space, and they were talking about how, you know, putting a stop to AI was a really bad idea, because the people who don't listen to, and I'm, mentioning countries like China or Russia, I guess, but, and North Korea even, but they would not have the they wouldn't stop doing things, and therefore we'd we'd just get everybody else would just get behind in the development process. So I think stopping development and research into AI is probably not a great thing, but we've got to find ways to discourage the bad use of it, and I'm not sure how to do that. Any ideas?
Cool. Encourage the bad use of it. I know that my 15-year-old uses AI to do his homework,
Hmm.
and he just gets the AI to bring up the results, and he then reapplies it into his own wording and submits it. Is that
Which
a good thing?
is the same
Is that
thing we
something of the
it's the same thing we used to do with encyclopedias in the library, right?
That's right, exactly where I was
Just
heading.
a lot
It's,
quicker.
and we used to copy it word for word, sitting there in
Hmm.
a musty old library. Um, we also have a friend whose son was feeling lonely, and he created a bot that would give him positive vibes.
Mm.
Is that's a really interesting. So this bot would actually talk to him and he would talk to it, but it wasn't a human, but it would give him positive statements.
Mm. Therapy is a really interesting use for AI, in that you can give an AI program or a model the capabilities to, based on previous conversations with people of similar, with similar issues, can use them to ask questions and not necessarily instruct them on what to do, but just continue to ask the right questions that might drag out the person's capabilities to make a choice to change things on their own.
And open source large models using AI agents are really building up both real world use cases as well as non real world cases to
Mm,
build up data sets to
mm,
understand how we should feel. There's a statement that the AI is trying to understand how we should feel.
hmm.
That's a scary statement. The AI is thinking how we should feel. Shouldn't we feel that?
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I mean, in you've seen the cases around, a lot of lawyers have been using ChatGPT to pull out just different areas of their practices, and there's been mistakes in those, which they haven't checked, obviously. But when it comes to healthcare, that becomes even more critical because you're talking about potentially someone's life or someone's ability or health to live and live in a comfortable way.
Yeah, synthetic data. So you've got your lawyers looking at large data models of synthetic data, which are both real and non-real, being synthetic, they're non-real, but they're then training other AI, other modules. And I just don't see, it worries me how we're controlling it, how we're going to control it. And if you just Google synthetic data and AI capabilities of the future, and there must be 100 requirements for people looking for data sets to understand what will be happening in the future. All the
Mm,
universities are looking at what is the implications of this,
mm,
because I don't think there's a clear way forward.
mm. Yeah, there's no clear way forward. But then we've had this in the music industry for a number of years, where the the media changes, whether it's going from record to tape to CD, CD to MP3, MP3 to streaming. Every time that happens, the whole industry goes into disarray, and they go, "We don't know how this is going to work." Half of the people are going, "We love this, we're embracing it, we're going to make it work," and the other half are going, "No, we want to go back to the old way of not having it at all." And that can cause a lot of division, and that obviously that's going to be a problem for us to deal with in the next 10 to 20 years. Do you think that that's going to cause so much division that there's going to become a technocrat race or creed where people are embracing AI and the technology, and then a Luddite type of um, cast where they don't want to have anything to do with it?
I think there will always be a them and us, a Luddite capability, if you want to put it that way. It doesn't matter what happens. If you even look at COVID, and COVID was emailed out through using 5G, maybe, maybe not.
Yeah.
Uh, but we won't even go down that line. But
And
if we
and
go back,
if anyone's scraping this for the use of putting it into a large data model, we can mention as many tin hats as we want, and let's poison
I'm
it.
sure, I'm sure I've got a tin hat around here somewhere. No, but if we go back in time and we look at the wool mills of England, producing wool. And when steam and power started to come in, there was a massive revolution. You had people who refused to accept it because it wouldn't be as good as normal. You wouldn't have human interaction. And you've got these steam capabilities taking over the jobs, losing people's jobs. And it all sounds very familiar. And
Mm,
then you had the
mm,
Industrial Revolution, and then you had electricity, and then you had computers. Each step we've had the them and us,
yeah.
the capability of wanting to do it, the capability of not wanting to do it, but it's always happened. It's
The
always rolled.
outsourcing journalism to social media has probably been one of the more recent ones, where journalists have been let go, and uh, I hate this term, but influencers are now becoming how people get their news, and it's a really poor way of doing that, because we have eliminated an industry that relies on truth and making sure that their sources are correct and double checking of facts and things like that, for a group of people who have no idea how to do any of that and don't really care, as long as their message gets across. And I think that that will even itself out. But now we've got the added problem challenge of having AI in there as well, who can generate facts as if they're facts, even if they're not facts, and they've just come from some person who has put a blog post up there, and that blog post has been ingested into a model somewhere.
We have countries that are training people to believe things that aren't real. That's been a part of war for many years. But
Propaganda.
now we're actually propaganda. We're now actually producing videos that people watch
Mm.
that may or may not be real, that are AI generated, that people look at again and again and again. And finally, they believe that this is a real thing after probably 4 or 6 months. And all of a sudden, something else ticks them over that pushes them, the country, over the edge, which may
Mm.
create a war, which may stop a war. Could go either way. But this is all sounding very deep and nasty. But let's look at some really good positive things. Let's think about factories and Industry 4.0 and how we're going to change our factories with robotics. So robotics, the old-fashioned robots that are building cars, they're gone. They're going to go. We're going to have humanoid-like robotics now moving around. Tesla, for example. Where do I go with Tesla? The
Well,
Cybertruck
we have
that
to
we
start at the
spoke about.
Cybertruck. We have to start at the Cybertruck. It's still really ugly, really, really ugly. And from what I've seen, even outside of it being very ugly, it's not very practical.
But
I
it
don't.
still does have a barbecue that pulls out from the back
I
of it.
know, and it's. I think they rely on the shock and awe factor of having a really ugly truck that doesn't really improve your life any.
And it won't, and it will never be brought to Australia.
No,
And that's hard because
no.
if you remember, I was one of the ones who wanted one at the beginning.
Yeah. Look,
I'm so glad I
I'm
didn't.
sure I'm sure you'll get the Cybertruck V2
Ooh. Okay, Cybertruck, Tesla with
robotics. Yeah.
Elon Musk, robotics. Going back to the conversation, Tesla with Optimus are now moving from electronic vehicles into a robotics company.
Hmm.
They really are. They're trying to push. Elon Musk himself has come out and stated they're moving into robotics with Optimus. The new Optimus robot has gone from a figurine into real life, and they've got them Optimus moving. I've got him. That's a scary statement. They've got Optimus moving around at about 3 mile an hour, 2 mile an hour, which is an optimum speed for a factory setting. And where does that go? Where does that take Tesla when they move into robotics? Are they going to go into domestic robotics? I wouldn't mind a domestic, but do I want AI in my house that deeply? Well, I look around my office and I'm very much controlled by AI already. So there's a question mark there.
Mm. And I guess then there's a security risk as well. Like how connected is that robotic or domestic robot, and how much information could be transmitted from that domestic robot to advertisers or bad bad actors, and vice versa. Could those bad actors actually push information back to that robot, that domestic robot, that would allow it to do damage to, you know, a massive amount of households in a particular region? At the
There's
moment,
a
if my vacuum cleaner, my robot vacuum cleaner, was taken over by, you know, a bad actor, what's the worst that it could do?
That's right. It can like walk out the door and
Mm.
wander down the street.
I guess it could get into my network, and it's not even on the network. So, but yeah, then, but if
Mine
you
is.
right,
Mine's
there
on
you
the
go.
network. There's a movie out at the moment. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, where all of the electric vehicles all of a sudden go to block the entrances to a city
Right.
because they've been told to by an AI agent. Da, da,
Yeah.
da. And one thing after another, you cannot get in or out of the city because every road is blocked by brand new electric vehicles. I wish I could remember the name of it. I only watched it recently. But
I
there's a
think
negative.
there's plots like this that have been on Star Trek for years. So it's It's not a
Oh,
new plot, but it's a they're just trying to make it into something that could happen today. And I think
but
that that's
it's a
interesting.
realization, isn't it?
Yeah,
It
it's a
makes people
realization. Yeah.
think about realization. And if you look at scams and frauds and the way that could go
Mm.
from there that are around the marketplace of this, talking about scams and frauds, NFT.
So yeah, while we've been away,
Sorry, should I
uh,
talk about that?
I don't know. I think I haven't been a huge advocate of NFTs. But I haven't necessarily come out and said, they're bad. I just think that they're misused for commercial gain at the moment. And while we're away over the last 2 years or so, we've had an explosive growth of NFTs and a huge bubble burst, and it's now a dirty word. There are positives to them though, like the in the art world, in gaming, in luxury goods, ID verification. They're using NFTs to do, as a practical way to do identity. Supply chain and event ticketing, they're doing some amazing things there. However, we still see NFT as a bored ape or a silly little image that people can collect or a celebrity endorsement. And I think that during the last 2 years, especially, scams and fraud, where people have built these silly things that have sold for millions of dollars and then disappeared with the money, it's just been rife. So that's my take on NFTs is someone needs to rethink them, rebrand them, and come back with a new system that uses the same or similar technology, keeping a pointer on a blockchain to a particular item. Um, and I think that
Okay,
a rebranded
let
NFT
me
would be interesting.
let me ask you then. Predict what is going to be NFT. What is the most best application you can think of for NFT right now or in the future?
Um, I think that idea is going to be an interesting one. Um, I think that being able to, in the art and luxury goods and fashion world, where we can actually put a token, and I'm going to stop using the word NF or the NFT abbreviation, where we can put a token that indicates current ownership against a physical or a digital good. I think that all of those things are useful. I think that tracking through supply chain is going to be useful. I just think that the whole thing was taken over by fraudsters and scammers, and it became a really dirty environment to be working in. What about you?
Well, I really don't know. I'm looking at NFT as a whole load of um, artworks that, and that's how most people look at it, as
Mm,
artworks that have been developed, designed, and sold on, and for a absorbent amount of money
mm.
sometimes. And are they worth
Not
it?
now.
Not now, they're not.
No.
In the music
Um,
industry, is there anything you can use in the music industry?
yeah, I mean, one of the things that we've been looking at is the royalty payments and copyright ownership. So, if you've got a blockchain that says these are the songwriters, these are the owners of the master rights, then here's how to we put a smart contract in there to ensure that when there's a stream or a performance or it's synced to a movie, that all of the people listed in that token are paid appropriately, then royalties get paid faster, royalties get more accurate. We don't have a black box of money that doesn't get paid to people. Um, you know, companies like Spotify and Apple and Amazon can use that to verify ownership, and who gets paid their royalties. The organizations around the world, they're called PROs or um, performance rights association organizations or associations. They would probably have a much better chance of doing this. However, each country has their own, and none of them really talk very well. So it would it would need a third party taking that on, probably one of the big record labels or all of the big record labels agreeing on a way to do this.
But isn't that like our industry as a whole, whether we're talking about Cat 3, Cat 2 and Cat 3 cabling as we moved into Cat 5, 7,
Yeah.
7 now, how are communications between the laptops, Apple,
Well, it comes down to similar thing like USB, for example, is a standard that's adopted by all technology companies generally. Um,
generally?
and if there's and in the music industry, there's a thing called an ISRC code, which represents the mechanical ownership of a or the it's a number that is unique to that particular recording, and that has been adopted by everyone. So there are I think there are ways that people could do it, but it just relies on a lot of um, technology that doesn't exist yet, and no one will probably invest in because it in all honesty, it's expensive. And I mean, that's the other thing about NFTs and the blockchain is it became a bit of a dirty word because of the amount of power that keeping a blockchain alive used. One thing that NFTs have done is forced the creation of new blockchains that create or that run on sustainable energy. So that's a positive. Um, you know, the
But you don't want government taking it over to regulise it, in my opinion.
no
But then again, you have to be careful about the private industry taking it over for their own
for profit
self-gain.
exactly.
That's right. So we have to there's gotta be a medium there
There
somewhere.
are, but the thing is with a lot of the industries. I mean, the uh, AI is probably under the same boat here, but there are industry based organizations that can take control of these technologies or at least recommend a an open dialogue between technology companies that produce this stuff to come up with a fundamental set of rules around how and why it should be used and where it should be used.
And we need to make it inclusive and acceptable for everybody,
Mm,
whatever our income stream, whatever our income ability. It shouldn't be just for the rich, it shouldn't be just for the abled, it should be for everybody on any race to be able to use, to be able to get the benefits out of it.
one of the great things about um, blockchain and cryptocurrency, I guess, is that in com- countries where cash has sort of gone out of fashion, whether that's because of a really bad economy or I'm talking about some places in Africa, for example, crypto or blockchain allows them to create a way to transfer money between people without having to have without having to have a bank in there or an ATM or hand out cash and things like that. There's a huge um, there's a huge area of the world that uses phone transfers for money, and that could be facilitated more securely through the blockchain. Not saying that that's NFT related, but it there are really good uses for it where creating secure transactions between people, even escrow transactions where with a smart contract between this person and that person, when this event happens, the money gets or the item gets transferred. So I think that it can be done. I just it just needs to be rebranded away from bored apes.
Boom, boom, boom.
Dung, 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 dung. Yeah. What else has been happening in your area of the world?
Oh, well, there's a lot of cybercrime. There's a lot
Mm,
of people being hoaxed into paying money,
mm.
of especially the younger teenagers. Now, it's
Okay.
interesting how many younger teenagers now are being contacted through Instagram, TikTok, or multiple other medias to buy bots that are then handed over to humans in multiple countries that then contact them to say, hey, we've got new photos. You need to
Mm.
send us stuff. And these teams are going, no, 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 you haven't. And then they're coming back and saying, yes, we've able to get onto your computer. Here is a list of all your contacts, usually obtained through TikTok or through Instagram, which is freely available, unfortunately. And then all of a sudden, the teenager is feeling guilty and an amount of $200. They go down to the petrol station. They've
Buy a
stolen a
gift
couple
card.
of, buy a gift card, and they use the gift card. That is a massive problem at the moment in our teenage area. And if somebody close to us has only just been through it, and the kid was so embarrassed that he didn't tell anybody until after the fact. And did they have anything? No, they didn't. But too late now
Even
because the
so,
200 bucks is gone.
they could use AI to generate that stuff. So
That's right.
it,
So
it, it is
that's a sort.
scary.
Oh, that worries me.
Yeah, it is scary because you've got vulnerable people. Not, and I'm not. And it could be of any age group. The younger people are very trusting because they've grown up with technology and it's always been trustworthy. Our age group, or in between younger people and older people, tend to have little time, so we don't make those decisions that perhaps you and I might, because we know about technology and we read about these scams and things every day. And then there's older people who just never have any chance of seeing through these. I mean, they're not just doing technology based scamming; they're doing human engineering,
Yep.
and it's not fun. I was listening to something the other day that where there was in Nigeria, there's a group of scammers who are, they've scammed a lot of the money for COVID relief and from the US. So anything between 100 million and 100 billion and 400 billion dollars from COVID relief funds, just by applying for them and asking to transfer them to a different bank account or using money mules to do that. And none of that's with technology. It's all just people in call centers making the call.
My belief
And
is that's happened in America, the UK, from most likely Australia. Could be anywhere that's been
mm,
going on.
and and surely that's a big enough problem to think, how do we stop this? But it seems 100 billion, 400 billion, whatever it is, $1 trillion, even someone said that it could be. They're, oh well, that's okay. The GDP of Nigeria is 500 billion. So they're either doubling or tripling that GDP. It's
That
crazy.
this happens in any crisis, any flood event, for example, in Australia, in Queensland. If there's a
Mm,
flood event after a cyclone and we give relief, financial relief, the number of hoax calls that have come through, or people claiming 3 or 4 or 5 times in the same building, just using a slightly different name,
right.
it's just horrific. And my experience of this is going back from 5 years ago when we had multiple problems in a crisis situation after a cyclone because people were applying again, literally, as I said, in the different names for the same building.
Mm,
And the one thing that you want to do in a crisis is provide money fast
yeah.
because people are on the ground are suffering. So you
and
need to
they
be
and
able
they've
to
often lost a lot of things like ID, passports,
correct.
things that can prove they are who they are. So it's an easy way to say, actually, I don't have that information anymore. Sorry,
Yep.
it
So
all got destroyed.
maybe AI is something that we can use to understand quickly if someone is trying to be fraudulent.
Mm, yeah, and perhaps
Insurance companies already are doing this, I
perhaps
believe.
using a token to identify someone through
Oh,
biometrics or whatever.
maybe just under the skin.
Hang on.
Here we go again.
Yeah. It's interesting because you just mentioned AI being used in insurance, and a lot of the insurance fraud is, or some of the insurance fraud can be down to how a mouse moves while they're clicking on things, and it's the same technology that they use in the Google Capture um, algorithms. So if your mouse is moving in a way that a human would move a mouse, then it's probably going to be a human. Whereas if the mouse is moving or the clicks are just happening without the mouse moving, for example, then it could be a robot. But then there's also, as they're typing, what are they typing? Are they deleting stuff? Are they changing stuff? Are they correcting it? Which is probably a good human trait to have. But an AI would just fill the form in.
Power Automate. How
Yeah.
easy is Power Automate? I love using Power Automate.
it it's crazy because you can just do stuff that quickly, and AI would not. Well, I mean, I'm sure it can be trained to do human things. In music production, we have a humanized button on most MIDI tracks, so I'm sure there's a humanized button for Power Automate.
Well, I use FamiSafe to protect my younger kids from multiple things on their phone. So it views a set of words, it looks at the websites they're going to, it looks at any form of social media, and it has a set of words that connects to it. Now, I use AI to look at FamiSafe to understand what words have been not calculated, and then I use Power Automate to add those words to the search functionality. So I've always got the up-to-date set of words.
Mm,
Interestingly, as they've gone from being 11-year-olds to 15-year-olds, the words have changed rapidly.
right.
And I've got a massive list of the top 1,000 words that were used when they're 11, then they were 12, they were 13, 14, and now when they're 15, this in 2024.
And that list of words will be going on our website for $19.99
$19.99.
per month.
Anyway,
That's interesting. There was a hack recently, and I don't know if you've heard about this, but there's a so it's related to what you're using, but it's stalkerware, where an ex partner or a partner might put stalkerware on their partner's phone to basically find out where they are and find out what they're typing and who they're typing to and everything like that. There was a hack that hacked the stalkerware and told the people who were being stalked that they were being stalked and who was stalking them, in order to, there was no money involved. It was just hey, we're going to do this, and they did it, and killed a whole piece of software that shouldn't have been there in the first place. And one of the things that came out of this is that a lot of the child protection systems or apps can actually be used as stalkerware and fairly legitimately or illegitimately, used. And I think that there's a concern there around should that technology be available, or how can we secure it enough so that it can still be used for the children and to protect children, or perhaps people who are less technologically advanced, versus people using it to stalk other people and to cause harm.
now I would argue that it's valuable only because I have thought of two different instances of my kids being um, scammed
Hmm.
by people pretending to be school kids.
Mm.
So I've seen that. Now I completely understand how it can be stalkerage because I
Mm.
see every single thing they type, literally word for word,
Now,
in any app.
what if someone's partner is technologically inept and is likely to fall for scams? Is it okay to put that on so that you can protect them? They're an adult.
That's a that's a bigger scary. As
I
long as they're
guess
in agreement to it, I
I
suppose.
guess there's a consent thing there, isn't there?
Yeah, my kids have agreed that part of owning a mobile phone has to have this app on it.
And
So they are fully aware.
at what point do you say, okay, you're on, the training wheels are off, it's all yours,
That's right. Is it 16 or 18? I don't know.
or 43?
Yeah. For the girl, it's 20 to 28. For the boys, they're on their own.
All right. And and now we're going to get an entire generation of woke people going, "Oh, you can't say that stuff."
I know. I apologize.
Yeah, we are Gen X, everyone. So we don't care. We're respectful of everything, but we don't care.
As I said at the beginning, you may not agree with all of our views.
The just to wrap up, like, I think that the technology landscape over the last 2 years is hugely changed, and I mean, it's getting more and more difficult to keep up with things. I think that that it's important that we do, and it's important that everybody, even if you're not working in technology, understands some of these things, understands how to find fake news, understands how to understand where ChatGPT has generated something, or when an AI has created a person, you know, and is using that to embezzle money from you. We should be in a situation where we don't trust anything until we trust them. Do you have safe words? Like, if, for example, there's a scam at the moment where you'll get a call from someone and it's using their voice, and it says that they're stuck overseas and they need some money, and it sounds like them, it talks like them, because they've used everything. What they're saying is you need to have a safe word that you've agreed, or a phrase that you've agreed prior, so that this is what to say, and I will believe that it's you. And how long would that last before they could crack that?
Oh, my safe word's orange. Oops. Now everybody knows it.
Nothing wrong rhymes with orange.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
It's one of my favorite knock-knock jokes, actually. Knock, knock, who's there?
Who's
Banana.
there?
Knock, knock, who's there? Banana. Knock, knock, who's there? Banana. Knock, knock, who's there? Orange. Orange who? Orange, you glad I didn't say banana?
And we said he didn't have any dad jokes.
No one said that at all.
Oh.
No one said that.
I think you're right. I think people should have safe words, but then how quickly will that be resolved and found out? Because
Well, and that
people
comes back to
even
tokens. I think, if you can if you can produce your ID with a token that is a passphrase, as well as a third party handshake type of thing, then there's no question. But that, I guess, the technology would catch up to that as well eventually.
and it come back down to the fact of some of these are going to the elderly, to the older people, and it's
Yeah.
from a younger grandchild. Hey, Gramps, I'm stuck in Japan. I need some money. I've injured my leg. What's a safe word? Oh, I can't remember the safe word because I'm in hospital. Oh, okay. I'll transfer the money now.
Yeah.
The safe word doesn't mean a thing if it goes out the window.
Yeah. 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 Touch your fingerprint here, and I can confirm that it's you.
Touch your fingerprint here. Use the RFID that's under the skin, and take out your COVID coupon that will allow you to access.
And put on your tin hat. So, David, it's January 2024 when we're recording this, 8th of January 2024. What are your predictions for this year?
Predictions for this year is going to be massive changes in the way AI is brought up. I think that's where it's going to end up. I think we're going to see Boston Dynamics slowing down on their robotics, Tesla coming way forward with their humanoid robotics. And I think open source large models are going to be really the thing of the future. I think the old university style languages are going to be changed by open source
Mm,
and open source large models such as Llama.
mm, yeah. For me, I think that this year we're going to see, and this is probably in contrast to your predictions. I think we're going to see people relying less on technology and trying to become um, more open to human connection, because we've been through a few years of very little human connection. I think that we're going to see technology becoming more ubiquitous. So we are going to see a situation where we don't necessarily call it technology. It's just a thing that we have. When we first got mobile phones, they were, wow, I've got a mobile phone. Now it's like, oh yeah, it's my phone. It'll just become a part of everything. And I think that's what's going to happen with things like AI. Instead of going to, um, I got this from ChatGPT. It's just like, oh yeah, here it is. I think that I agree with you on the robotics thing. I think we're going to see a lot more robotics. And unfortunately, I think we're going to see a lot more scamming happen, a lot more security, a lot more people being scammed. And I don't think that there's any way through that. I also see that, based on what's just happened in the EU with the AI summit, I think there's going to be a lot more regulation in place around AI and how it can be used. Whether people follow that or not is a different story.
Wow.
So let's come back to this in 12 months and see how we did.
Mobile phones. I think the mobile phone of the future is on your hand.
Well, you've seen the one, the Star Trek one, right? The one you put
Well,
on your collar, and
yeah.
I mean,
Anyway,
I still talk through
we
my
wrap.
watch.
We wrap. We shouldn't start it up again.
Well,
Conversation for another time.
Topics for next time. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Have a great time, everyone. Look after yourselves from Michael and I at Nerds Out of Water.